I remember my thoughts were just kind of on this loop, and it was just basically like, you provide no value to society, you are worthless. And it was just continuing, and I remembered I couldn't get it to stop. And then I was just sitting in my living room, and I called out to the God that I thought I believed in, and I just said, God, please make this stop. I shut my eyes, and it was like I was vibrantly in my living room. And then suddenly Jesus was in front of me. And I felt his presence, and like, it's the best thing I've ever felt in my life. It's like love and hope, peace and truth. Like, I remember I was wanting truth so bad, and I just felt all of it all at once. And it's like everything I feel like we're kind of all searching for. It was like, it's just him. I know what it's like to feel a presence, but his was all of this in one.
Lucy Meadows grew up atheist. Her family simply believed there is no God. There's no higher power, no spiritual reality, just the material world. And over time, that didn't stay neutral. After being labeled and pushed out in a heavily Christian environment, she didn't just reject Christianity. She became openly hostile toward it. But she didn't stay closed off to the spiritual world. As long as it wasn't Christianity, she was open to it. And what she stepped into was real. And it got dark. Then one night, in the middle of her living room, she did something she never thought she would do. She asked for help. And of all the possibilities, it was Jesus that showed up. And what happened in that moment didn't just affect her circumstances, it changed her at her core. Please meet Lucy Meadows. Lucy Meadows, I am so enthusiastic about you being here. You have such a genuine spirit. Your video was so genuine. We look for genuine in videos, and it was so authentic, and it was so genuine. And so I've just been excited about it. You've been here for a little while already, and we just kind of getting the lay of the land and stuff, and have enjoyed our conversation so much. And so I'm looking forward to the rest of it. So Lucy, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great to be here. It's been just quite a journey. It hasn't even been a year. But yeah, the Lord has guided me, definitely.
Well, even like you're talking about, like even getting here on this trip. You it's like, how did I even get here? The things that fell into place, and maybe even some stuff from the enemy that was trying to prevent things early on, and things not working out. But then they started working. Yeah, there's a whole thing just in the last couple of weeks. It seems like
2 months.
2 months, and
which is crazy. Yeah, to just be like, hasn't even been 2 months.
That you sent your video?
Yeah, I sent my video, I think, January 30th.
Okay.
Or the end of January, and it's mid-March.
Yeah, today's March 13th that we're recording this. It'll air sometime in probably April or early May maybe, but yeah, that's the process between there and there. But so since the time of the video, lots of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, we may talk about some of that stuff.
Yeah.
You've got an incredible story and an awesome encounter and a life transformation. And, you know, if your story is not very convincing evidence for the existence of God, I don't know what is. And so I'm excited about it. And there's some tough stuff, and there's some good stuff, and there's some incredible stuff. And so we're just going to get into it. You know, I often ask the question, how have you experienced God? I want you just to begin to tell your story where you want to tell it, and I don't think I'm going to have to coach you into telling me how you've experienced God.
Yeah.
So take it from there.
Okay. Just to start off, I was raised completely atheist. Both my parents were atheists, and just grew up not even considering the concept of God, not considering there's a creator, just thinking like what we see is what we get. What we see is, this is the world and this is what is. And that was like the kind of explanation of everything, was just, we didn't even talk about God. But I grew up in suburbs of Atlanta in like late 90s, early 2000s. And that was very, very Christian area, very Bible Belt. But I was actually born in the Chicago area. So when we moved when I was 7, and it was just kind of culture shocky for me. I grew up in a Chicago area, very, very diverse. And then suddenly I was in the suburbs of Atlanta, and it was like everyone's a Christian, and it was just very jarring to me, honestly. Even as a 7-year-old, it was like, oh, it seems like everyone here is kind of, I don't want to say the same, but kind of the same compared to the Chicago area. And and so that was like the beginning of it all. And when I was in 3rd grade, I befriended some girls in my class, and one of them invited me over to her house after school, and her mom picked us up in the minivan. Like the first question her mom asked was just, what church does your family go to? And I just answered honestly, which was like, oh, we don't go to church. Just didn't think anything of it, because like, again, in Chicago, like I had Buddhist friends, I had Hindu friends, I had Jewish friends, and like no one would be like, what church do you go to? And like went over to her house. We had like a little play date, and then the next day at school, she told me that she wasn't allowed to talk to me anymore, and we couldn't hang out anymore. And that her mom said that me and my family were clearly satanic because we didn't go to church. And then she got another girl on board, and apparently other moms were told about this. So I remember I had like one friend in my 3rd grade class, because all the other girls would just like not talk to me, because they were like, well, you're clearly satanic. And I didn't even know what that meant. I was like, what does that even mean? Because like I had no concept of God, much less concept of like what is satanic. But yeah.
If Christians listening to this aren't responding with like, what in the world? I don't understand that. When we hear things and our initial reaction is something other than love, we're not doing it right. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to tell you. I feel your story, and it makes me upset. It makes me reflect. It's like, okay, I don't think we would go so far as to say, if they don't go to church, you can't. That's it. We're severing, right? But I don't know. I mean, would we say, maybe we don't want you hanging out at their house so much, there's influential things. I guess I can understand to some degree. But if there's not some sort of something in us that says, this is an opportunity to build the kingdom of heaven by showing people love, the love of Christ in this situation. I don't know, man. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I would hope that most people listening to this would be like as upset about what they just heard in that situation with just an unsuspecting 3rd grader who was just going over to play. Anyway, I'll let you continue with that. I do want to ask one other question that's around raised atheist, right?
Yes.
Was it raised atheist as in we're just not connected to this God thing that everybody believes in, and we essentially materialists, and everything that we see is what there is, right? Mm-hmm. There's really not a lot of evidence for it. Or was it like a more aggressive stance of opposition to the idea of God? There are aggressive atheists that are out to convince the world that Christians are just idiots, right? Which one was it more like?
I feel like it started just like we don't even like consider God, but I think because of the treatment that we received, it became Like, I remember, like, if you know Bill Maher, he's kind of a little bit more of the atheist who's like constantly like cutting down Christianity, which, and I remember like being in high school and like watching Bill Maher and like my family just being like, yeah, like their Christians are nuts. But I think that came out of kind of a like emotional response to not really feeling part of community. I think growing up, really, I know I didn't feel like I was like a valued member of community. It was like, okay, that family, we're just gonna like not really, or it would be like very shallow relationships. It's like people didn't really want to get to know us that much. I know my mom struggled with that. And we had some friends, and we had a few people who would like kind of embrace us, but it really wasn't like, I mean, I remember being on like neighborhood swim team, and it was like, yeah, we kind of didn't gel as much was like the rest of the families. Like that was like their social gathering, and it was like, okay, I would swim and then we leave. And it was a thing where I think because, so I do remember my dad at one point saying, if anyone ever asked us, just say we're spiritual, not religious. But I never even knew what that meant, because I didn't even know what spiritual was. But it was just a response of like, we're not really embraced here. So then I think that created a little bit more of that opposition to Christianity.
Yeah. I can understand that, sort of you need to create some sort of defense against some of that. And so there's totally understandable.
Right. But I mean, it got to the point where like, I mean, even if I heard the word Jesus, my whole brain would be like, okay, that's stupid. Like, I'm not engaging. My like emotionally would just shut down if I was in a conversation with someone and they brought up Jesus, and I would just like remove myself basically. I just would be like honestly filled with like disgust, because I just associated Jesus with like rejection and with like, isolation, and like, I know
the very opposite
right
of Jesus, right? And you're only getting that. You're not getting that from Jesus. Yes. You're getting that from his followers. Yeah. And therein lies the problem.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. We're followers of Jesus. When followers of Jesus look nothing like Jesus, I think that's probably been the tool of the enemy of God as much as anything. It's a lot of that comes from inside the church. Yeah. And it wasn't everyone. I don't want to be like every single person, but it was enough people that it really just was like, And like I had some friends, and it would just be like, we just don't talk about this. And that was, I don't know, that was just kind of how I grew up. And that was my entire, like from 7 to 17 was like just rejecting Jesus completely, pretty intensely, honestly. Yeah, because it started where you were talking about of like, we're just not Christians. And then it became, we do not like, I mean, I remember being in college, and like I would come across someone who was very Christian, and I would immediately just be like, okay, so we probably aren't going to be friends, and just immediately kind of like not pursue a friendship even with them. And it just like, it was just this constant like complete rejection of Christianity, because I, again, just associated it with hurt. And it didn't like make me want to ever pursue it. I remember like being 19 and looking at religion and just being like, okay, what is this? And every time I looked at Christianity, I was like 100% no, let's explore something else. So I explored like a little bit of Buddhism and a little bit of Hindu and a little bit of Wicca, and just I was like anything but Christianity. Yeah. All right, continue with your story. I don't want to park too much on that, but it is something that we do have to park on for a bit. And I think the question we need to ask ourselves for Christians who are watching. There's a lot of non-Christians that watch this too, which we love. And a lot of non-Christians are like, okay, yes, exactly, right? And a lot of Christians are probably saying, hey, I recognize that. And Christians also say, hey, look, the church, though it's supposed to reflect the love of Christ, is still a bunch of broken people that are pursuing Christ to whatever degree they are. And so if society thinks that they're going to experience perfect loving people inside the church, lower your expectations, right? Because people are understand that they are sinners, to use sort of a Christian word. It's not even a Christian word, it's just true, right? We are that. So, but the question I would pose to anybody watching that is a Christian: how are you treating documented non-Christians? Mm-hmm. Is it at a distance? Are you being ridiculed for dining with tax collectors and sinners like Jesus did, out actively pursuing them? Paul's job was to take the good news to the Gentiles, non-believers. Mm-hmm. It was the purpose, right? It's spreading into the world. At one point, it was all non-believers, right? It started from somewhere. And it's about spreading the good news. And so is that our posture when we encounter an atheist? When we encounter a Satanist? Mm-hmm. Is it love, or is it stay away? That's a question we got to ask ourselves, right? So anyway, let's move on from there. And then so then probably about 5 years ago, I again never believed in anything. Just content with, okay, God's not real. That's fine. I'm just working in the material world, of course, like that. Struggled with some anxiety, struggled with some depression, did the whole therapy thing. But about 5 years ago, I fell kind of into more of a new agey type of spirituality. And this is where like new age people don't call it new age. They just call it generally like spirituality, or I acknowledge the creator, or they use creator, source, God, universe. Yeah. They use all of those terms pretty interchangeably. And it took me a while for me even to like use the word God, because I was still like, that still has a twinge to it from how I grew up. But eventually started being like, oh yeah, God. But I slowly kind of fell into that with two different things. I was in this, it was like subconscious belief coaching type of world, where it's like mindset coaching. But the program that I did was like the main guy, he had kind of a Hindu background, and he never said, oh, these are Hindu principles. He was just like, this is just truth, which had some like reincarnation components and this concept like the universe has your back, and like, don't worry, they have your back. But I just kind of was getting that from there. And then I got this job working at the office of, I would call them kind of more new age practitioners. But I mean, both of them were chiropractors, but they both did energy work. And I didn't honestly know they did energy work until I got into energy work. And then I realized that's what was kind of happening there. And the longer I worked at that office, I started getting like messages, downloads. Sometimes I would know things about people. There's no way I could know it. I would just be told. Be told? What do you mean, be told?
I would just basically kind of like get a message of like, oh, hey, this person's struggling with this right now. Or
like in your spirit?
Yeah. And it was like doors were so open there, which I didn't really know, but I had a coworker who started developing like mediumship abilities.
As they're working at this place.
And so me too. Like I did not try to make that happen. That just started happening. sometimes I would like, I could sense if there was kind of like an entity or a presence of, honestly, more of like a spirit type of thing. And she could like see things. And I remember one time like truly seeing, like actually seeing like, kind of like the base of, I feel like I have to give a little bit more context. There was someone I knew who was going to get like heart surgery and she was afraid, which was fair. And every time I looked at her, I would see this like kind of glowing triangle at her feet. And it was just like, and then I would get the message like, this is her foundation. Like she's going to be fine. But there was like no way of explaining this. It just started happening as I was working there. And then again, it was like my coworker would just like talk to spirits. And sometimes I would pick up, I would be like, I feel like there's a spirit in here. And then she would come in and she'd be like, okay, so there's something here. And I'm like, okay. And she would confirm things. And, at one point, like I could sense there was something in my apartment, and, my coworker who had never been to my apartment was like, do you have a blue chair? And I was like, yes. Like the only chair in my apartment is a blue chair. And I would sometimes like things would move in my apartment and pans would rattle. That was like, it was like whatever the entity that was in my apartment at that time loved to rattle this one pan.
Did you believe that there were entities in your apartment?
At one point. And it was like the longer I worked here at that place, the more I started experiencing entities.
And you also, correct me if I'm wrong, are now believing that there is a spiritual realm in operation that you are experiencing.
Yes.
Okay. So an atheist would say, nonsense. Mm-hmm. How are you reconciling that as someone who, when filling out the paperwork of spirituality, likely has checked atheist, and now you're experiencing spiritual things?
Mm-hmm. And that's where I started like shifting the concept of like, there is something outside of us. There's stuff we can't see. There's like a spirit realm. There's, and then I started, like, I got energy work. I'd never done that before.
Can you create some clarity around the understanding of what is energy work?
Yes. Oh, I can try. It is a little hard to explain, but it's basically, so if you are just like laying, let's say you're laying on a table, and suddenly you feel something in your body. Suddenly you feel, I don't know how else to fully describe it, but it's like you can just feel a sensation in your body, and you can feel it. Sometimes it can be a temperature shift. Sometimes it can be a tingling, a warmth, like a sudden, like, oh, my head just got really warm. What was that? But you're not doing it, and you're very much there, and someone else is basically doing energy work, and you can feel it.
So those chiropractors that were doing energy work, they would have patients or clients, whatever that you call them, and they would come in with, a shoulder problem. I don't know, I'm making stuff up.
Yeah.
And then are you saying that they would get them in the examination room and then begin to guide them in energy work? What does that look like?
Right. I would say that, so this is where neither of them had like energy work listed as any of their like services, but it wasn't until later after I got laid off at that job, I went through a really dark time. There was a lot of really intense depression, and I struggled with like suicidal ideation. And so I just doubled down into New Age, and I ended up getting Reiki certified, which Reiki is like an energy work type of thing. And then when I learned about Reiki, then I knew the words that those chiropractors were using sometimes, of like, one of them would say psychic surgery, and that's Reiki. That's energy work. That's basically, like, I guess they could sense like blockages and in again, like, it's like how to explain all of this. Especially like Chinese medicine deals with like qi, or Ayurveda, which is like ancient Indian medicine, deals with kind of a little bit more of like doshas, but they all think of like the body's energy system. And if there's a blockage, then there can be disease. That's kind of a basic thing on what they believe.
Yeah. So if I were a client or a patient, I'm like, hey, I'm setting an appointment. I got a lower back issue. I go into the exam room. What am I going to experience?
I mean, they would just do the chiropractic thing, which sometimes that'd be a pop, or like, oh, let's assess your body. But then they would also do, there's this thing called neuroemotional technique, which that would be more like muscle testing. I don't know if you've ever had that. Basically where they like hold your arm out and they can basically ask your body questions. And generally at the beginning of that, they would just ask a simple yes or no, and your hand would actually go down. So that was a thing of like, if it was a no, your arm would just like, you would not be able to continue the strength in it. It's a weird thing that like, unless you've experienced it, I mean, I used to think all of it was just not true, really. And then I was like, oh yeah, I can't hold my arm up. And they would just ask your body a question, and then it would go up or down. And often it would be like, they would kind of find more of like an emotional thing, and then ask your body, like, did this happen between 0 and 5, 5 and 10, 10 and 15? And then whatever one your arm would go down, then it would kind of like dig into that. And then sometimes it would, I don't know, they would just do like some energy work around that. It's just like you're just kind of sitting there, but like you would just suddenly feel something either like leave your body or a sensation in your body that's just, oftentimes I would feel like a release. Like it would just be like, oh.
So would they command it to come out or something?
I mean, not in like, this is where it was like not a verbal way. So it's like, I didn't really even know this was happening all the time, but sometimes it would like, they'd be like, oh, I just felt this thing come out of you. Which, yeah, I mean, I didn't believe in any of this at all until I experienced it. And I was like, I did feel something. I did feel lighter afterwards. I did feel better. But that's like, I mean, in reflection on all of it, it's like, oh, I think I just kind of invited a lot of stuff in during that. And that's where like feeling more and more entities in my apartment the longer I worked there.
So you're beginning to abandon atheism at this point.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was like, okay, the universe has my back. Okay. Let's just, but I do remember some degree around spirituality. Like I started to think of the question of morality because I knew someone who had stolen a cat from their neighbor, and they had justified it as they would leave their apartment, or they would leave it was a townhome, and their neighbor's cat would come up to them and they would just pet it. And then, a week later, outside their house, the cat comes up, just pet it. And then one day they just took it, and they had lost their cat a few months before, and they were very sad about it, which I love animals. I'm such an animal person, like love them. But when they took this cat, they had been hearing things around them in the spiritual community, because that's who was all around them. And one of them was, oh, your last cat sent your next cat to you. And I remember after this person took the cat, they were like, oh yeah, part of them felt wrong about it, but they would just contact this other spiritual person who does have connection to something outside of them. And they would just get messages like, oh, you have soul ties with that cat. Oh, that cat was that was actually your cat. And it just came to you in this specific way. And I remember struggling with that and just being like, I had cats growing up. I have a dog. I love my animals. And the concept of your neighbor just one day taking your animal was horrific to me. And I was just like, but everyone around me was like, that's her cat. And I was like, I don't think it is.
It's like, no, it's not. You stole a cat.
Right, you stole her cat. It's like, but I mean, I used to think the whole concept of psychics was fake too. But it's like, until you get one who can tell you something like, oh, hey, that bear that your friend gave you when you were 7, that's still in your room. And you're like, there's no way you could know that. And until you find someone who does have a connection to something outside of themselves. Whereas nowadays I would interpret that as a not great connection.
Yeah, we'll talk about that too.
Yeah, but I mean, I thought all of that was just woo-woo garbage until I experienced it.
Until you experienced it.
Yes.
There's the thing, right?
Yes.
I thought it was all garbage until I experienced it. That basically could sum up the purpose of our podcast, right? You know, it's like we talk about, have you experienced God, and yeah. So and the enemy of God is also something that an atheist would say nonsense, that doesn't exist. You can say that all you want to until you experience something that you cannot explain with all of your natural means. And these are the things that are going on. So let's continue with your journey.
My journey.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just remember that specific thing with the cat, just leaving a little pit in my stomach, but everyone around me was like, that's her cat. So I don't know. I think there was a part of me that was like, okay, that's her cat, but I still felt wrong about it. And then not that long after that, I got laid off very suddenly from that job. And just struggled so deeply. And I remember 2 weeks after I was laid off, suddenly I felt like no connection to anything outside of myself. I stopped getting messages. Sometimes I would get visuals, stopped getting those. It was just suddenly I just felt starved a little bit of I started to feel like there was something because I kept experiencing something. And then suddenly I was no longer at this workplace that had a lot of open doors. And suddenly I was like, oh, I want that. Where is it? And started struggling with really intense depression. Suicidal ideation. I applied to so many jobs, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of jobs. The only one that said yes was a job scam. And thankfully I didn't fully fall into that, but it was very elaborate. There was an entire interview process, and it was basically an attempt of a check fraud scam that they had successfully done to a lot of people. And I didn't know that, but it was just hit after hit. And I was I just couldn't seem to get out of it. And I did the therapy thing. I went back to this coaching thing and tried to, what's the subconscious? Why am I struggling so much? What is all of this? And so you stopped having the visions. You were having all these. Mm-hmm. So that's interesting, because an opponent of this, a skeptic, whatever you want to call it, could say, oh, she got a job
in this place that's doing New Agey type things. And so that's the environment. So she started experiencing things too, right? You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's kind of like a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy thing. It's like, oh yeah, I think I see something. I know what you mean by that, you know? And you kind of go along with the thing that they're doing.
Yeah.
And then the job is gone, and it's like, I'm no longer immersed in that pot.
Right.
So I don't have the flavor of that pot anymore, right? In other words, if you hung out with a bunch of soccer enthusiasts for like 3 months, 6 months, suddenly you know who Messi is, and you understand what offsides and all the things, right? And you're now a soccer person, right? Because you're immersed in that environment. Get extracted into that and go into a tennis group. Right. And that leaves. And so the naturalist or the atheist or the person who says there is no spiritual things might say, well, that's the explanation for this.
Yes.
How was what you experienced not aligned with that explanation?
I think it was because I would get the knowings. I would get knowings about people. There's no way I would know that. And then it wouldn't be like I would immediately go to them and be like, so I got this knowing about you or this message, and let me confirm it. I would kind of dance around it, and then they would confirm it for me. And this was a thing that I had never experienced before, and I only experienced when I was working there. But I could see that someone's like, well, that's not right. It's like, until you experience it, I don't know how exactly to describe that.
Well, then the next kind of question that comes after that for me is, okay, so let's assume it's all true. Then are what you saying that once you were removed from that environment, are you saying that the sources of those things had become separated from you and you were no longer connected to the thing that was giving you, or the things that was giving you those visions?
I think that office, because there was so much energy work that was happening there were crystals, sage, oracle cards, all of that was there. I feel like it was very concentrated. There were so many doors open, that it was like being there all the time. When you work there, it's like I'm there many times a week for a long time, and being in that environment with all of the doors open, it just like seemed like it opened something. And I don't really know why. That's a great question, but it also is like, I think that it's like, well, clearly the doors were in that office, not with me.
Yeah.
And that like devastated me, because it was the first time I really felt, oh, there is actually something else was working there. Because it's like I had people, tell me, my whole life, there's a God. And I'm like, okay, no, there's not. But having energy work, having these experiences of, knowing something about someone who maybe I'm not even that close to them, and suddenly I will know something very detailed about them. It was like, I don't know how else to describe that.
Yeah. Well, I think the point of it is, in my line of questioning here is, let's explore the things that would be what we would bring up to explain it as not real.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And now that we've addressed those, the conclusion is, okay, so it's real. Right? That wasn't just, I'm going to hang out with these people, so I'm going to experience what they're experiencing. It's like, no, man, something happened. Something happened that wasn't. And when I was removed from that, things stopped happening that were happening outside of me, not inside of me.
Yes.
So keep going.
Yeah.
So you're depressed and doubling down into New Age.
Double down. Yeah. So I started I don't want to go too hard into like the exact specifics, because I don't want anyone to be inspired to go down those. But there was, like deep meditations, kind of astral projection meditations, yoga nidra, which is like a guided meditation more than like an exercise. started doing all of that. Then, yeah, I got Reiki attuned, which is like Reiki certified, level 1 and 2. I never did Reiki master, but basically a Reiki master will kind of give you Reiki energy. And again, I thought all of it was woo-woo until I experienced it. And then suddenly you're like, my hands are hot and I don't know why. Or my hands are really cold. And it's like, you're doing this Reiki energy stuff, and people are giving you feedback of, they can tell where you are and their eyes are closed. And they're like, oh, you're working on my feet right now. And you're like, yep. And yeah, it's just this thing of like, until you kind of, I mean, I don't want people to seek that out, but experiencing it. And then I started working with this other energy worker. I'm not going to say healer. And I could tell it was more powerful than Reiki. It was like immediately everything just like felt lighter in my entire body. Immediately I wouldn't feel depressed. And it was like I was in this cloud of depression, and I would work with him, and it would just be an online thing. And I would just feel so much better. But that just made me want to work with him more and more and more. And it would be this, I mean, I didn't pick up on this pattern until much later, but it would be like, okay, I'm in this place, and then I would get this energy work and I would feel so much better. But then in 3 days, I'm kind of in a worse place. And so then I would go get more energy work and then be better, but then I'd be in a worse place. And it's kind of where I would say now is like, I look at it as junk food. It's like, oh, this makes me feel better right now. I want the chocolate, but if I have a ton, I'm going to feel way worse. I mean, in a few hours, but like definitely 2 days later, I'm going to be worse off. And that's, I mean, I just continued doing that. And I mean, this guy had at one point gone to like Egypt and did energy work in a tomb. And I remember after he did that and I had a session from him, I was like, oh, this is different. And it was, I mean, that's where like I'm still getting a little bit of like deliverance from that specific thing. And I can't ask people to not go towards that enough, because I'm like, I started getting weird injuries so he went to Egypt in February of, was that last year? Oh no. Yeah, 2025. And in March of 2025, I got a session from him, immediately had a weird foot injury, went to podiatrists, went to like chiropractors, went to all of the things. People were like, that doesn't make any sense how you got this foot injury and what it is, and struggled with that. And then in May, had a thumb injury where my doctor was like, you must have really bent your thumb all the way back to like tear part of, is a tendon or a ligament. And I was like, I was literally dusting. Like I didn't even feel it. He was like, this would have really hurt. I was like, I didn't feel it. I don't know. It just, my thumb started swelling up. And then right when that one started healing, another injury popped up. And it was just doing that constantly. And nowadays I just tie that back to, I think it's that energy worker. And it was right after he did the whole tomb situation. But I was just doing all of that. And then last April, like end of April, I was having a particularly like bad day. And I remember my thoughts were just kind of on this loop. And it was just basically like, you provide no value to society. You are worthless. Like you're not doing anything. And it was very like I would describe that as like suicidal thoughts. And it was just continuing. And I remember I couldn't get it to stop. And I don't feel like I've ever experienced that before, where I identified that's what was happening. I mean, I've been through a lot of therapy. I was like, okay, well, I'll go for a walk, move your body, get out, try to change your environment. That did nothing. It's like the thoughts just got louder. And then I was like, okay, put on Parks and Recreation. That's my like happy show. Like, let's just, distract that way. That didn't work. Thoughts got louder. Happy music. I had a happy music playlist because of when I had the entity in my apartment, someone was like, just play happy music all the time. They'll leave. They didn't. But that was like just things that I was like trying all of these, like the therapy checklist of when you're in a bad place, and like nothing helped. It only got worse. And then I was just sitting in my living room, and I called out to the God that I thought I believed in, which was God, universe, source, creator, interchangeably. And I just said, God, please make this stop. And I was sitting in my living room on my couch, and then I shut my eyes, and it was like I was vibrantly in my living room. It was like truly could not tell the difference between eyes shut or open, which is, I'm a visual person, but like that's not normal. You know what I mean? Like there's, I can't see things as vibrantly. But this was like almost more vibrant. And then suddenly Jesus was in front of me, and I just like felt his presence, and like even like, it's the best thing I've ever felt in my life. Like even thinking about it is just, it's like love and hope and peace and truth. Like I remember I was just wanting truth so bad, and I just felt all of it all at once. And it's like everything I feel like we're kind of all searching for. It was like, it's just him. And it was just this, I felt his presence. And that's the thing. I think like, I know what it's like to feel a presence, but his was all of this in one. And then he gave me a message, and it was like, it's not audible. I've never like heard something fully audible, but it was, he just said, you can be with a man and have his kids. And it's like I had two different experiences in that moment. It was like my spirit met him, and my spirit knew him, and my spirit could only communicate in absolute truth. But my mind was having this other experience where I was just like, what is happening? I don't understand this. And like, again, the whole, like, you can be with a man and have his kids, that doesn't sound profound in any way. But the last 15 years, I had been identifying as a lesbian, and I had been pretty much just dating women, going through times of just not dating anyone. But if I really just thought if I ever got married, it would be to a woman. So for him to say that was like, my mind was like, what do you mean? And my spirit responded to him immediately and just said, that's all I've ever wanted. And my mind again was like, this doesn't make sense. I like, I've been to therapy. I feel like I've done the subconscious belief. What's the why behind this behavior? What's all of this? And then my spirit again just said, it was like kind of declared to him and to my mind, I think, and just said, you know me more than I know myself. And like talking to Jesus. And then my mind was like, how is this possible? This doesn't, like, how, I feel like I know you, but I don't. And now I'm confused. And then my spirit just, I guess, made it like a declarative, like, Jesus is real. And I just felt the absolute truth of everything in that. I felt the absolute truth of those 4 statements of what he had said and how my spirit responded. It was like, okay, that's true. What? Like, my mind just couldn't understand fully what was happening. But then I just opened my eyes and I'm in my living room, and suddenly I'm giddy and I'm happy. And I was like, I haven't experienced this for like a year and a half. And I just was like elated, and I didn't understand why fully. But it was like, that was the last time I dealt with suicidal ideation, was that right before that. And it was like, once I felt his presence, all of that was gone. And yeah, I just like have been on like a little bit of a Jesus kick since then. But after that, I mean, I struggled for about a couple months, 2 months definitely, of going back and forth between that just didn't happen. You're crazy. That's really what I would have those mornings where I was like, that didn't happen. And then I started to realize every single time I had that kind of a day, I would be more depressed. It never hit suicidal ideation ever again, though. But I would just like be a little bit off. And then I was like, okay, if this did happen, what would be the next steps? Because I don't know what this is. And I really I didn't know anything about Jesus other than I don't want him. I know what he looks like, but like,
I mean, that's
right.
the thing though, right?
Yeah.
Anybody but Jesus.
Right. I was like, not him, anyone else.
I mean, you called out to God, you called out to Source, whatever you want to call it in whatever terms it is, the one who is in control, make it stop. And Jesus showed up. I mean, when mind, not spirit, but mind exits that thing and says, I opposed Christianity for sure with all the things I went through, but then I got into these places and realized that spirituality is true, but there's a lot of options out there, and there's a lot of, but there must be a source. And I asked the source to make it stop. And Jesus showed up. Did that just break your spiritual structure?
Yeah. Shattered. And I couldn't jump on board right away because I had all of that anti-Christianity so deeply embedded in me. And I would say I'm still disentangling some of it. There's still some parts of it that I'm like, oh, people are going to judge me, like Christians or non-Christians are going to judge me. And it's like, no. Just because I used to judge Christians. So then I often will just assume, oh, the non-Christians are going to judge me how I used to judge. And it's like I'm still taking some of that apart, but that just shattered in that moment. Like just Jesus is real, is that whole concept was like, okay, what? What would I do if Jesus is real? What do you do? Because I rejected all of this. So I I just like truly Googled like how to pray because I was like, I don't know what this is. I don't, I guess like I know Christians pray. Okay, I'll pray. And the moment I started praying, I felt the same presence.
Okay, so I got questions around the presence. We're going to carry on with this story in a minute. But you just had an extraordinary encounter. Describe the Jesus that you saw with your eyes.
I mean, it's Jesus. It's everything. It's man, the beard, and like kind of shoulder length, wavy, curly, dark hair, and wearing, like a cream colored toga. And, it's like I've seen a picture of him or like of what we think he looks like. And it's like, that's what it is. That was what I saw. It's like, I wish I had, spent another second being like, okay, exactly. Like, let's try to take this in as much as possible. But I would say like seeing him was not even a tiny bit of feeling him. Like the presence of him, the feeling that came with the presence of him was like, I don't even need to see you. Like, beautiful man, but also like, I mean, the presence of him was everything. Like that was what changed me. I've seen a picture of him before, but his presence was like undeniable in a way that like, that changed my life that moment.
If you had to try to put earthly verbal descriptors around the presence and what that felt like, what that experience was like, how would you give it your best shot?
I mean, it like filled me with love in a way that like I've never understood love as that, where it was just fully, and there wasn't even a tiny bit of holding back on that. It was like everything is love, and here's peace, and here's some joy, and here's like anything you've been searching. Like a lot of people, like they go for money because they want safety or they want value, and it was like no, here's all of it. Here is safety. You are valued. You are loved. Here's peace. Like I'm just giving all of this to you. And that was how he felt all of that. Like that was just, it was like the presence of him was just all of that. Like every one of those feelings was in it at the same time, which is like, I don't think humans are necessarily equipped to feel all of it because it's just so incredible. And I didn't know that was like a thing. I didn't know him. I didn't know that came with him. But it's like if he were to walk into this room right now, it would just be filled with all of those things. Like everything that we think like in material goods, I just want this feeling. It's like he is all of that. And that's something I intuitively, deeply knew that exact moment.
That is a powerful description that I think people can feel but have not experienced. I don't know when there can be people that enter the room that I love and I enjoy being around. And when their presence comes into the room, it's like, yay, right? But nothing like what you're describing. They don't fill me with love. I have a fond thought of them. It's like, oh yeah, happy, right? That's good. But what you seem to be describing is that the presence that you experienced kind of like almost like a shock wave enveloping you completely with this inexpressible love to whatever degree you think you know it times a million. And same thing with joy, and same with peace, and acceptance and truth, all flooding you at the same time. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't encounter that in the world with people, even the greatest people
Right.
that I love the most dearly.
Yeah. It was like if someone walked into the room and gave you everything you've ever wanted. Like if someone if there's someone who's like, I just want $1 million. If someone walked into the room and gave you $1 million right now, if you're like, I've always wanted love, and someone was like, okay, here's your next part. Like, here's your spouse. They're going to walk into the room now, and they have $1 million, and they give you, oh, you're worried about this thing? Someone else took care of it. It's just like there's no earthly way to describe it. But that was the feeling that came with it, was just everything.
How was this experience not a powerful daydream?
Yeah. I went through that. I went through 2 months of questioning it. I could see that. I could see someone absolutely saying, yeah, you think you had a vision. Okay, you've just gone crazy. But I can't logically explain how I went from suicidal ideation to just not struggling with that immediately. Mm-hmm. Like there was not any of, and it was like, right, well, in the therapy world, they would be like, okay. I mean, I don't think that they could explain that, because I did all of the things to try to get myself into a better mental place for 1.5 years. And I also, doubled down into New Age, but I was also doing the talk about it. Let's try to figure this out. What's the why behind this? Why are you so sad? Like, what is going on? And it was like, the moment I met him, immediately that just stopped. And I can't explain that. And that's one of the things that I even just looking back, I'm like, that is still the thing that I cannot explain. Because it could be a great daydream, but I've never had a daydream completely free you of a mental health thing. I'm great at daydreaming, but it still was but also I didn't want Jesus. Why would a daydream about this thing that I rejected deeply, that used to fill me with disgust, it now fills me with love, and it now fills me with purpose, and I feel good. And that's something I can't also, I had a total, anytime I heard the word Jesus, disgust. And suddenly, why would a daydream about him be anything other than what I had associated with him?
How does it rewire that association instantly?
Right. Immediately.
Yeah, that's really good. So fascinating. You can sense the supernatural element of Christ and his love in every single thing you're describing. And if you had not been in the posture you were in, it would be more likely that you could explain it away if you're searching for Jesus, and I just want my childhood Jesus back, and any of those things, right? But you were just entrenched in the other place, and recognizing spiritual solutions, but of all of them, Jesus is not an option on the menu.
Yeah.
The other piece of this that really I think is fascinating, and I think there's some insights to be sort of explored maybe in this place, is that when he communicated with you, you felt like Lucy was present in her mind, but that he was communicating with something in in a deeper, truer place. Like he was communicating with your spirit, which is you, in a way that was like over your mind's head, like way over it, but you're in it and you're like, can you try to describe that a little bit more? What you mean by he was communicating with your spirit and your mind was observing something that was contradictory to your mind?
Right.
So interesting.
I mean, that's one of the things that I've also kind of struggled to explain necessarily, but I mean, I was reading the Bible 2 weeks ago. I believe it was like 1 Corinthians, and they were talking about like spiritual gifts, and they were talking about the gift of tongues. And there was a point in it that said something around the lines of like that if you speak in tongues, that's like a spirit, that's like speaking of the spirit, but that it wouldn't, basically your mind isn't getting any benefit because you're just speaking a spirit language. That's how I would describe it, of like somehow those two could see each other in that moment, but they were separate. Like the spirit was with him and my mind was able to basically kind of interpret it, I guess is how I could compare those two. But that is like a hard thing to necessarily explain, because I've never really had that of, I can see these two things. Well, this is actually where, so my dad passed 13 years ago, and it was not a good time, but it was, I remember the moment. So we were in the hospital. He was in one room, and me, my brother, and my mom were in like the small room next door. And the doctor had come in and said, like, you know, we've lost his heartbeat. They did that a couple of times. And then I remember one of the last times the doctor came in, and they were like, so it's not looking great. And my brother immediately just like collapsed on the floor and just started sobbing. And my mom like bent down to comfort him. And in that moment, I felt like my dad's spirit come to me and just said, can I go? And my spirit immediately just said, yes. And my mind was like, no, 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 no. What's happened? Like I knew immediately in that moment that he was gone on a spirit level. Again, this is like, I don't know how to explain it, but I've had this spirit mind thing those 2 times. And I really struggled with that whole concept too, is like after he passed, I was like, I mean, it was such a sudden thing that like I was not okay on so many levels that I couldn't like process that spirit thing. I mean, I would say I recently did, I feel like that was another time when it was like spirit versus mind, that we are spirit and we also are mind, but we also are body. And it's like, we acknowledge like we have all of those. And sometimes they talk together and they're like, they're working together. And sometimes, I mean, even like sometimes your body doesn't work and you're like, I don't know why. And, I don't know if that was like
No, it's really interesting because, you know, Scripture talks about the word cutting between spirit and soul. So a lot of language in the Christian world talks about we're spirit, soul, and body. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people believe that the soul sort of consists of mind and emotions and a lot of the things that we use and express here, but that our spirit is truly who we are, our true essence. And of course, we're familiar with our body, right?
Yeah.
And they're all encased in this body, in this version of life. And, you know, I've had plenty of conversations with people who have exited their consciousness exited their body, whether dying in a motorcycle crash, on an operating table. And I've had plenty of conversations with people that have had that, which is really a powerful piece of evidence, the fact that we are spirit, and that we continue to exist outside of our body being alive. And whole cool thing there. But what you're describing is so scriptural to me, I think, as well. And this concept of Jesus not necessarily communicating with you to your soul, to your emotions, and to your mind, and those things. Those are the things that are dug into the things that you have here, but that your spirit was on a higher place, and that's where he connected with you. And your spirit, not a spirit, your spirit acknowledged it as truth. You said, that's all I've ever wanted. But your mind, your soul, was like, no, it's not. I'm a lesbian. Why would I want that?
Yeah.
And then you begin to think of the temple, right? And you think about demonic oppression. It's like, okay, when demonic oppression occurs, most people in Deliverance say that occurs at the soul level, at the mind and the emotion, right? If you're a follower of Jesus, the Holy Spirit resides in your spirit. It is there. And when you look at the temple as it was designed, some of the outer courts are more represented by the soul, but the inner, called the Holy of Holies, was that's where God resided. So the demonic stuff happens in the soul outer court area, and people say you can't have a demon and be a Christian. Holy Spirit filled. Yeah, you can. There's just way too much evidence to that's a theory that doesn't really hold up. That doesn't really hold up even scripturally. But to hear you talk about the experience of Jesus showing up and communicating with your spirit, sort of in the Holy of Holies, where he is about to take up residence, and your mind's out here on the outside like, what are you talking about? No, stop it. What are you talking about? Is so cool. Do you see that?
Yeah. I mean,
do you agree with that?
I feel like I knew that my spirit could only be truth. And just like I knew he could only be true. Like, I mean, just very deeply, I'm like, the spirit cannot lie. Our mind can do all sorts of fun things, but the spirit cannot lie. And I felt that so deeply. I felt that truth of like, everything that was stated in the spirit was true. There was not I lived for 15 years thinking I was a lesbian, and he's like, no, you're not. And I was like, that's true. And I don't know how to and that's where my mind was fighting it a little bit, but I can't deny that I knew the truth of what he said. And I knew it deeply. And I don't know how to describe that, honestly, because it just was like, I know what you just said was real. I know what my spirit said, it was real. I know it cannot lie. And I just knew that so deeply and so intensely. And it was like, I don't know if there's any other people who've been through something like that, but it's like, it's just so, I don't know, how this is a table. I know it's a table. That's a truth. I know it's a table, but it's like that kind of absolute knowing.
This opens up many cans of worms, which is really cool though, right? And there's tons of controversy potentially in this, right? And there's this awakening to the fact that there is a thing in you that is deep, deep truth that sometimes is so clouded with deception that has come in through our emotions and our minds and our other things like that buries that. I think of just the gender dysphoria things that go on now, and people being convinced that they are things or even genders that, well, they're simply not. Mm. And it's identifying as something other than what apparently is obviously true, even from a scientific perspective. Right. It's an illustration, I think, of the way that the enemy can sell us deception, and we embrace it because we find community around it.
Yeah.
Or we find safety around it.
Mm-hmm.
Perceived safety.
Yes.
Right? Or comfort around it. And so this is okay, so there's like 100 questions that are going in my mind on a bunch of different things, and we want to continue with the story for sure, and obviously you're here now.
Yeah.
and you're here to reveal what Jesus, of all people, has done and who he is, and your articulation of his presence is extraordinary to me. It really is. I was there with you as best I could be. And yeah, it was like, stop worrying about whether he had a sash or not. Right? I always like, well, did he have a sash? Right? Was he wearing sandals? I don't know. Uh-huh. Who cares? How big was the light? I don't know. It was light. But it was the presence that just, yeah. I just want to soak in that more, for sure. But he spoke truth into you that you identified as truth. It doesn't sound like you said, no, he's just trying to, that's in conflict with the truth. It seems like you're identifying that as there's a truth that's this nugget inside of here that's crusted over with untruth. And he broke away some of that and said, and he touched a spot of truth in you.
Yeah.
I want that. I don't know how to, I don't know how to articulate the questions that brings up.
Yeah. And I've like seen that kind of heartbreak in some other people too, I was talking with a new Christian friend, and she was like, I've never heard God, but I want to. And I wish I could give that to everyone. Like, I wish everyone could, like, I pray for people to have something like that, because it's like I knew, and I know. But I mean, this is where I would have to say, like, some degree of like true faith is not knowing. So I think it's really beautiful when I'm around like this community of Christians who are like, I've never had an experience like yours, but I have faith. And it's like, that can teach me a lot, because I had to experience it for me to get on board. And now I get to share, like, yes, you're after something real. You're after something true. You have faith in something that loves you. And I know that. And I get to know that. And I know, like, like, you have to wait. Or maybe you can have it, maybe you can have an experience like this, but there's going to be a lot of people who have to wait. And there's heartbreak in that. And there's like, but can I just have that feeling and that knowing? And that's just where, I just get to pray for it. And I know, there were people who were talking about death, and some Christians being like, I'm so afraid of like to be in front of God and everything. And I'm like, if Jesus is there, which he will be, like, what are you afraid of love? Like he's there. I mean, he's here now, but also like, yeah, he's available. He's ready. He's like for you.
Yeah. And as I sit here, and I've not had an experience like yours, but I don't sit here listening to your experience saying,
right,
I wish I had that. There are people that are going to do that. What we try to do here is we try to pull people into your experience and let them receive the revelation of the verse where Jesus says, I am the way, I am the truth, and I am the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. And you experienced it. And you were awakened to what that really means. And how even the things that had crusted over areas of your life that you believed to be the truth, you connecting to who you really are, finally. You're coming out as who you really are. That's what the world says. Jesus says, it sounds to me like you're saying, that was the deception of the world. I'm telling you the truth. I'm revealing the truth. And in your spirit, you're like, that's all I ever wanted.
Yeah.
And your soul is like, no, it's not. We've already come out. This is the truth. You're like, I hear you, but him.
All right.
Love, peace, light. Depression, suicidal ideation. I want people to experience that as they hear this. I want them to get a revelation of the love of Christ, not the condemnation that the world tries to sell you, of Christianity.
Right, because that's genuinely my thought of what Christianity, I thought it was, here's an oppressive book. And if you do everything it says, then when you die, I mean, Sky Daddy gives you a castle and a unicorn, and then you get to be happy then. But you have to sacrifice, and you won't have a Sunday to yourself, and you don't get to sleep in, and you have to follow all of this. And really, I mean, I didn't see a lot of Christians following all of it. It was more like, oh, here's a book that gives you permission to judge other people and give yourself a pass. And that's what I thought Christianity was. And I have this great friend who says, like, she's like, I think Christianity's been so muddied, but she's like, I'm a Jesus follower. And I'm like, me too.
So what is Christianity now in your eyes?
Yeah. Now it's, I don't know. That's a good question. Well, I think I still have that old version. There's a little bit of that still is like...
You got muscle memory around that.
I still have some of that. I think there are different versions of a Christian. I think there is the one that has the relationship with him, or tries to, or just endeavors to have this relationship with him and to follow him. And they read the Bible, and it's like, here are the ways, and let me just try to do these, because, and I look at it as like, you know, this is like a book of boundaries. Like also boundaries and miracles. And, you know, I know that I feel his presence more when I'm abiding by it. And I just have that. I just feel it. And like last November, so I used to smoke weed. And last November, I smoked. And for 5 days, I felt disconnected from him. And I immediately was like, okay, that can't come with me. And I put that down and like have it smoked at all. Haven't even wanted to. It was just like, no, but I want to be with him. I want to feel him. It's like a no-brainer for me now, which, and he's let me like let go of things over time, but I think I just am like, well, what do I want Christianity to be? Is like focused on Jesus, number one. And then, yeah, read the Bible. Great. And have community. And he brought me into the most beautiful community. I mean, I can't even like describe how amazing these people are and how healing it has been. And how I was so like, I did not want to be in community. I had all of this. I was like, great. Okay, so now I'm following Jesus and now I have to be with his people.
That's well stated anyway, but you've had a different experience. Not all church experience is that way for sure, and it's I think it's improving, but that's good.
Yeah. But like, yeah, but yeah, that's I mean, but like I know that that's not how like all church experiences go, and that's, I've been told like my church is special. Like the people there are so open to being exactly who they are and what they are. It's not this let's pretend everything's perfect thing. Mm-hmm. It's not this, oh, I'm kind of holier than thou situation. It's very much like, hey, I'm struggling with this thing. Can we pray for it? Like our prayer text, group text is like, it's incredible. It's like, oh, hey, you have this community of people who like just want you to shine. They just want to connect with you. And they like, I remember, I mean, maybe this is jumping ahead in the whole story, but that someone I'd met at church, we'd had like, I don't know, 5-minute conversation before service started. And after service, she was like, oh, we're going to go grab lunch. You should join us. And I was like, what? Like, we had a 5-minute conversation and you want to spend like an hour with me? And it like freaked me out a little bit because I was like, that's not how this, what do you mean? Like, I have done comedy stuff, and I did the Second City Conservatory in Chicago, and that was like a year-long program, and it's like I've never been to any of their houses. All of the people I did this program with, I'm like, have we ever gotten lunch? I genuinely don't know, but it's like I met 5 minutes phone call, or not even a phone call, 5 minutes talking to someone, and then they're like, let's grab lunch. And that was just normal for them. And it's like healed so many parts of me that used to feel this like walls up with people. And this, I mean, especially with Christians, because he gave me a vision to be in community in September of last year. And I fought it. And I was like, no, I'm not ready. Again, a situation where I felt like 20% ready. I was like, I still have some things to clear out from, I can't be around Christians, or like, how do I be myself and step into that room? And then also I was like, my testimony is like, I had a vision. Okay, so now they're going to think I'm crazy. And then if I say like, oh yeah, and I dated women, are they going to be like, oh, are you in love with me? Like, I just felt all of this like homophobia. I felt all of this, and it was just projected from how I grew up.
Not actually happening and coming from then. It was in your head already. Yeah.
And it was like preventing me.
It's not truth.
Right. And then every single Sunday after I had a vision around community, I would be filled with like insecurity that I hadn't felt since middle school. And it would be just Sunday morning. And so then I didn't go. And then that happened 3 weeks in a row. And that's when I realized I was like, I think this is warfare. And then that 4th week, I was like, you're not looking in the mirror. These are the clothes you're wearing tomorrow. You're going to walk out your door and go in there. And I don't care if you don't talk to anyone, just walk in. Needless to say, I talked to someone 4 days later, I'm in their living room at Bible study. Like, it's just been like that kind of a thing. Every time he's invited me into something that I did not feel ready for at all. Like, it's not like I was like, I'm 95% ready and I'm just not ready yet. It's like, no, I'm 20%. I'm not ready. I don't want to do this, frankly. And he's like, go. And then I do. And then it's like, it has paid off in ways that I can't even, like, this community, I can't describe how amazing they are. And this Bible study is 4 blocks from my apartment. Like, I walk there. How?
In Chicago, that's pretty rare.
Yeah. To just be like, yeah. I mean, they have a bunch of community groups, but for one to be 4 blocks from, like, all of these people have been gathering for years. And, like, I live 4 blocks from them. And now I am in their living room. And they invited me to Thanksgiving after knowing me for 3 weeks.
Invited you to Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's the opposite of the reaction you got from Atlanta Mom. That's for sure. But you were, yeah. you know. So how have you changed since that time? Since that experience?
Yeah. How haven't I?
Yeah.
I mean, it did take me a few months to make sense of everything. It took me 2 months before I walked in to a church for the first time. After the vision, I knew following him meant that I was leaving LGBT. And I knew that following him meant that I was going to be a Christian. And now, okay, well, I still have all these thoughts around Christians and I have all these judgments. And now I'm that. And now I'm just like still disentangling some of that. And then I went to like so many different churches over the summer just to like be like, well, what's this one? I don't know anything. I started reading the Bible from the beginning. I don't know anything. Like, but it was the first church I walked into, of course, is this incredible community. And okay, so I think like I got baptized in December. I did not feel ready.
You feeling a little thread running through this?
Yeah. Feeling that thread. Did not feel ready. My church does baptisms once a quarter. So if it wasn't December, it was going to be March. And every time I prayed about it, he was like, December 7th. And I was like, I don't feel ready. But I brought it up to my community group leader. And she was like, yeah, just pray about it. And I was like, I am. And he keeps telling me to do it. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to do it then. And so I had to submit a form on the church website of like, I want to get baptized. And they sent an email and they're like, okay, great. So you'll do like 2 minutes of your testimony and then you'll get baptized. And I was like, no, because I hadn't told people this. I hadn't told people that I dated women for many years. They didn't know that. And I was afraid that the second that I said that, they were going to be like, let's sit a chair over from you.
Yeah, you don't go to church, so we're not going to have another play date.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so and then I brought that up again to my community group leader. And again, she was like, pray about it. And every time I prayed about it, I kept getting the word more, share more. And I was like, please no. And reluctantly, shaking, got up there and did the 3-minute version of this and hit vision, hit LGBT, hit all of those things. And I was terrified doing it. And what I got afterwards was the opposite. People prayed over me. So many people. My pastor came up to me 2 weeks later and said, like, that my testimony really touched him and made him cry. And he was like, I really needed to hear that. And it's just, people so embraced me. And a few days after I got baptized, someone in my community group gave me like this little present. And it was, and she just said, she's like, I just want you to know that we love you and you're meant to be here. And it was like, that belonging that I thought, I think that's LGBT. I think that's what everyone wants. Everyone in the world wants to feel like they belong somewhere. And I think a lot of LGBT is people who've been told they don't belong. And just to like say all of my testimony terrified and be like, God, I'm not ready at all. Like that one, I would say was like even 5%. I was like, I do not want to do this. And it's part of getting baptized, and you keep telling me to do that. So, okay, I'll do it. And it has just brought me so much closer to people so quickly, and not in like a toxic or codependent way, just in like a love and respect way. And that has just been so life-changing and so healing. Like I used to be so like walls up with people. It took me so long I have some really close friends, but it took me so long to like let them come in. It took me so long to like invite someone over to my apartment. And within this, like, someone I met, a few weeks, and it's like, oh yeah, come over. Like my heart's changed and I didn't do it. And I do have one little story. Oh, okay. I feel like I do need to like backtrack a little bit.
Okay.
So about a month after I had the initial vision with Jesus, I was just in prayer. So I feel his presence. I'm in prayer, and I had a vision where I was at the zoo, and I was in front of like the tiger exhibit, and there was 6 inches of glass, and there was this tiger on the other side. And I was like, look, I love animals. So it's like, I'm like looking at this tiger, and like, he's beautiful and he's so strong and powerful, and like, what a presence this tiger is. And then it like, that vision like abruptly ended, and another one started. And again, I was at the tiger exhibit, and there was this tiger in front of me, and it looked at me. And this time there was no glass, and my body just flooded with fear. And I got the message, just, this is how you relate to men. And like the next day after this, I was walking my dog in Chicago, and then I turned my head and I was like, oh, he's cute. And I was just like, what was that? Like, I have never in my life experienced that before. And it was like, since that moment, I've started just relating to men differently. And it was, again, I didn't do that. I wasn't like, I was like, okay, so Jesus said I'm not gay. Let me make myself like attracted to men now. And it was like, I'm not attracted to every man, definitely. But it's like, just, again, it was just like, okay, one day, and I was just like, okay, I'm just following Jesus. Cool. I'm fine. And then suddenly it was like, oh, I've never noticed someone like that before. So that's different. That's like, again, it's a different world. And it's not necessarily that I'm chasing that right now. I'm still very much like, I'm building this relationship with Jesus, but it's like, he's like, no. This is possible for you. And that's just been like dismantling all of what I thought I knew. It's dismantling what I thought my identity was. And that's been a process. And I didn't immediately like fully go after him, but end of August, so 4 months after that vision, I surrendered, and I was just like, you got me, like, I'm yours. But it did take me 4 months. Even though I got to experience him and I got to experience his love, I still had so much to disentangle.
Certainly.
Mm-hmm.
I got some questions.
Yeah.
And I got a bigger question I want to go back to that's related to the experience, that is around the experience. What do you think the entrenched lesbian community's response to that would be?
Yeah.
I want you to maybe think of that and then think of what you would say about it. That's really rooted in your experience,
right,
not necessarily theirs.
Yes. So I think it would be probably a gut reaction of the lesbian community to immediately just say, that didn't happen, you're still gay, you're in denial. Yeah, I think that would be probably the main thing. And why that would be, I mean, I used to be in that camp. And the part of it is like, well, if that's true for her, like, they're like, well, I don't even want to go there. I don't even want to possibly think, because I thought if I ever got married, it would be to a woman. I thought, oh, if I have a family, it's going to be with a woman. And I remember being like, well, it could happen with a man, but I've never been interested in that. Like, I just don't even think that's possible for me. But yeah, I think it would be very easy to just say she's just still gay. And how I see it is like, well, there's others that would then say, okay, she's bisexual. And then it's like, okay, well, we could break down even what is sexuality, or like what is an identification with a sexuality, because people are going to think of that in different ways. Someone is going to say, oh, it's physical attraction. Someone's going to say it's romantic attraction. Someone's going to say those are the same thing. Someone's going to even like say, well, there's an emotional, physical, sexual, romantic. And you're like, everyone has a different gauge on that. And this is where, like, if the LGBT community really just says, well, it's actually just however you identify, then they should have no issue with me no longer identifying as a lesbian. Because if in my thought of it is, it's like, okay, so if Jesus says I'm not gay and my spirit in truth says I'm not, who am I to then go against that? Who am I to go against absolute truth that I have the privilege to have experienced? Why would I go against that? But I can see how there is, like, this probably could bring up anger in the LGBT community. And I understand, because I used to be there. I understand, because I think there's some degree where you feel like you have to fight for your identity in a way. And you're being told, oh, this is these, like, here are the markers of this identity. But then reality, it's like, well, different people still check different markers, and different, again, it's like you're going to associate one marker as more important, and someone else is going to say, well, this one's more important. But yeah, I hope for respect. I hope for the respect of acknowledging, like, okay, I did do this, and now I'm doing this.
Was it a choice?
Can you elaborate?
We can go in either direction.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like you chose to become a lesbian?
No. I mean, this is where I think Christian, non-Christian, anyone would still say, like, you don't get to choose who you're attracted to. I think, and then, like, some psychologists would say, well, you're more likely to be attracted to this because of this, or I think that's more like, often they're like, what parent did you not get love from, and then why, who did you have to be, and then you're attracted to that kind of person. But I can't say that, like, I ever, like, made myself be attracted to it. Like, it was very easy for me. Like, I would have love feelings for a woman, and it wouldn't be like, let me try to make this happen. It was like, I didn't come out until after I had what I thought was love with a woman.
Do you recall when you began to identify as a lesbian?
Yes. Yeah, I was in college, and I had like in love feelings with this girl. And I remember, like, having that experience, and, like, suddenly all of the love songs made sense to me. Because before I was like, I don't understand why people would do, like, why would you, like, move across the country because you're in love with this person? Like, that makes no sense. But then when I felt it, I was like, oh, I get it. But I also, like, had been in this before coming, so I had that experience, and then before coming out, I had been in this kind of, like, isolated situation, and I had flocked to the internet, which was at that time, like, Tumblr and YouTube, and started, like, I remember there was a channel I was watching, and it was like, I knew I was a lesbian because of these things, and this is how you know if you're a lesbian, and then, like, had so many videos, and I just inhaled all of them, and I was like, by the end of it, was like, oh, okay, that's what I am. But I didn't identify with that until that point. But I had experienced love feelings, so it's kind of like, the identity, I feel like, came from, I guess, more society. The feelings, I can't say weren't there, though. Yeah.
And there's romantic / sexual attraction also.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm wondering, did that pre-exist, or was there a time that you felt physical attraction to men before coming out as lesbian, back earlier teens? I don't know.
Not really. I think I remember, like, being like, when you're a girl and, like, you go to a sleepover, the first thing that tends to be said is, like, who do you have a crush on?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking, oh, so, like, a boy who's kind of like, what boy is the nicest to me? That's who I have a crush on. Like, that's what I thought. And I remember being 13 or 14 and going to a movie with a group of friends. And afterward, like, we're waiting for the carpool to pick us up. And in unison, like the three of them just were like, his shirt was off. And I remember being like, am I broken? Like, I didn't remember, like, the guy's shirt was off when? I don't remember this. And then also I could see that they were having this like experience where that was like exciting to them, or that was like, yeah, just like, oh wow. And I was like, I don't even remember that being a part of the movie. And that was like all three of them immediately felt that. I did like, I mean, I dated my brother's friends in high school. He dated my, like, we're a year apart. So it was like, but I never like loved them. I never felt the feelings that I had felt for women.
Yeah. Did you make a decision to not be gay after your experience? Or is that just something that happened?
I think I have to say both in a way, because it just happened. But also I made a decision to identify as gay. And so now I'm making a decision to no longer identify as gay. But is that identification, like, I think that was the decision. I don't think the decision was like, and I wouldn't say that I haven't had any attraction to women since. I would just say that I've had a lot more attraction to men since. And I did not choose that. And like, then you could break down like, well, someone who's a gay woman would, first off, not be attracted to men, or even just would be pursuing relationships with other women. And now that I'm like I'm choosing not to pursue relationships with women because I felt this truth. So there's a choice there, but it's not like I chose to be attracted to a man.
Yeah, it's a thing that I think is worth having more open discussions around. I feel like the camps on this are pretty entrenched, and doesn't seem like people have sort of unguarded conversations. That's kind of what I'm hoping to do a little bit in this piece of it. I don't want it to. This isn't focused on that, but it's a really interesting element. It sounds to me like there was a supernatural thing that occurred in you after you encountered Jesus, and it wasn't necessarily, well, now I'm a Christian, so you can't be gay.
Right.
And so I got to really trick myself into not having, or suppress the actual feelings that I have to comply with this closed-minded Christian standard.
Right.
And from what I'm hearing from you is that is not the case. That after this event where you believe you encountered Jesus, that from that time you've been given another vision, and suddenly, not because of a decision or discipline, you are finding yourself attracted to men. Not just being sold a bill of goods, but there's a thing that's changing in you.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting. And when you talk about it as the supernatural, as source, as Jesus, as God, just tapping back into absolute truth. So, when you had your experience with Jesus just before this deep cloud of depression, if I'm not mistaken on the words that you use.
Yeah.
Suicidal ideation. I don't know, were there other things from back then? I mean, but those are pretty heavy.
Yeah, those were, I think that was those two mainly were just like, so it just made life like every day hard.
Yeah. Heavy.
So heavy.
Burdensome.
Trudging through the day, not wanting to wake up in the morning.
You had this experience, and if I remember correctly, you said not a single time it was at that moment that it all lifted.
Yeah.
Anxiety left, no more suicidal ideation, everything like that. True or no?
Yeah, the suicidal ideation has completely lifted. I would say there was a little bit of some degree of depression in those first 2 months.
Okay.
And that's where like when I would identify as like when I would have those days where I was like, you made this up, that didn't happen. Mm-hmm. Those would be the depressive days.
Was it a marked difference though
Yes.
in your state of anxiety and depression immediately following the encounter with Jesus?
Immediately.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if we look at things from a spiritual perspective, and you had a deliverance minister on here, they're like sitting back here. The indication or the implication is that in your encounter with Jesus, that you received deliverance from oppressive demonic entities that you had partnered with previously. Mm-hmm. Do you think that occurred? Do you see it that way?
Yeah.
And I know you've been baptized less than 3 months, 4 months,
Yeah.
right? And you're exploring and you're learning. I mean, you have understanding of spiritual things with the New Age background and that sort of thing. But do you believe that you received deliverance from demonic oppression to whatever degree that day?
Yes. At least whatever that was around the suicidal ideation, immediate. That was not me. That was not a choice. That was not like I had been trying to make myself feel better for 1.5 years, and I couldn't make it happen. And it was that exact moment. It was like, okay, he was like, you don't have to deal with this anymore. That's what I felt. It was just like, nope, I'm going to take that. You don't need it.
Do you believe, I'm going right back into slippery slope.
Yeah.
Controversial territory. The lesbian community is about to is ready to hit the keyboards. Mm-hmm. Do you believe that the lifting and the changing that you believe you're experiencing into finding men attractive began to lift in the same experience?
Maybe I feel like that wasn't even a thing I was. Well, no. Actually, I think immediately I started to think, oh, okay, maybe men? Interesting. But I didn't have that like, oh, I'm like walking down the street and I'm attracted to a man thing.
Yeah.
That was like a month afterward. But I do think immediately it was just like it cracked this concept of I will never marry a man, definitely. And it cracked that immediately.
So then the question is this just turning into a thing that is absolute truth on your sexuality? Or could it possibly be that the deception, if you want to call it the deception, mm-hmm. if truth spoke to you and said, it's all I ever wanted, and mm-hmm. Your spirit agreed with that, is it possible that the same-sex attraction was a demonic oppression thing?
I think that's plausible.
From your experience?
Right, from my experience. Yeah, I think, I mean, even with that vision and then the subsequent message of this is how you relate to men, it was like, well, there were some times I was not treated well by men. Mm-hmm. So, and what I've kind of learned around deliverance is like traumatic things can open doors to the demonic. And so to say that there is, I think that there's a plausibility to say that that was just a demonic situation where doors had been opened because of some trauma situations, and it was just like, I think that's plausible. I mean, I think this is where I don't know that I'll ever know fully.
Right. And I don't either.
Yeah.
I have conversations. People ask me about questions like this in like church settings, and my position in the past has been, I don't know.
Right.
I mean, I know
Right.
I know me. I know my experience. I've always kind of taken the position, and it could be wrong. Trust me, I know that I'm wrong on many things. I'm not proclaiming to be the expert on anything here. I just am I'm a person in search of the truth. But my position is like, hey, I'm pretty sure some people do choose that. I was like, I'm pretty sure some people are just born that way. Mm-hmm. And I think God made them that way, to live their life for God, even in the face of it. Mm-hmm. And people will say, no, they're not born that way. Something triggered a deception from the truth that they bought. And my response to that is typically, I don't know.
Right.
And so I feel safe talking to you about this. And I want to know your experience. And I'm exploring the possibilities. For if someone were to tell me that they believe that they were born a lesbian, mm-hmm. and now they encountered Jesus, and inexplicably in their spirit he contradicts that, and their spirit agrees with it even though their mind doesn't, and then shortly thereafter they find themselves beginning to be attracted to men, not through discipline or self-torture, mm-hmm. but it's naturally occurring. It makes me wonder, was this just textbook enemy deception meant to take them down a path distancing them from God? I don't know the answer to those questions, and I'm not trying to lead us into this conclusion that lesbians are simply demonically oppressed, or gay people. I'm not. I don't know.
Right. I mean, this is where I don't know either. I think it's a fair question. I think there's a plausibility to it. I could see that being true. I could also but then there's to say my experience is the same as someone else's. I can't say that.
Certainly not.
I mean, I will say, I've known two people who had identified as a lesbian or as lesbians, and at this point have been in decade-long relationships with men. Both of them identify as bisexual, but it's right, but they also at one point had said, oh, I'm fully a lesbian. And both of them then, experienced attraction to even just one man. And that's, I don't know if you know Jackie Hill Perry, mm-hmm. That she's a Christian who used to identify as a lesbian. And she has a great book. It's Gay Girl, Good God. But she talks about how she's like, Jesus didn't free me from homosexuality. Instead, he brought her to be attracted to one man, and that is her husband. And now they have 4 kids. But it's kind of I think even those two people are not Christians. They just had that one person that they actually were attracted to, and the relationship worked. And but I don't know exactly. I think there's a plausibility to it. Yeah.
I just, once we start having conversations like this, people move into their legalistic camps on either side, and it's just going to happen. And I'm thankful that we're not doing that here. I think our conversation is just exploring the possibilities of truth and who God is. I am taken back to the love you experienced and the joy and the peace you experienced that accompanied a moment where you realized you were also in the presence of absolute truth. Truth that was contradictory to your soul emotions, and mind that now seems to be blossoming to whatever degree. It seems like it broke the crusty layer of soil and popped up, and it's like, truth's going to spring forward. It's been crusted over by something that's not truth. And yeah, you're used to the crust, man. That was life. And
Right.
Not that it was, I don't know how it was, but it seems like you're just being, truth is emerging. And truth in this situation is something that, I don't know. I just, as a traditional looking white, straight Christian man from the South, I have really no place pontificating on any of these things because I check every single stereotypical category of oppression in the world. You know what I'm saying? But in my spirit, I so want to know the truth.
Yeah.
There's not condemnation in me.
Right.
I just want to know more of God and what He has for us. And I think it is amazing that when you ask for God, whoever that is, to help you, Jesus showed up. And He didn't condemn you.
Right. He said, I can be with a man. He didn't say you have to.
That is so cool and interesting to me.
He didn't say you should. There was no oppression in his language.
Or you're going to hell if you don't.
Right. None of that. And he didn't, he came in with his presence, which was absolute love and acceptance. And he gave me this, you can. And then my spirit countered with, that's all I've ever wanted.
And your mind is over here watching the tennis match, right? It's like, what's going on here? It's like, I want to get in this thing, but wait a minute, I don't think so.
Right. Yeah.
That is so fascinating to me. What do you think, and what do you think is something that people could take away from just that piece of the experience?
Right. I mean, you don't know. We all think that we know ourselves. And we all have this craving to know ourselves. And I mean, that's where in New Age, when you talk people going to horoscopes or what's your are you Myers-Briggs, or we just want to know about ourselves. We just want to know who we are. We just want to know oh, that's who I am. Okay, here's the lens now I can look through the world because now I know who I am. And then the reality is I thought I knew who I was. And I never knew who I was in Jesus. And now I do. And now I get to learn that depth of that. And I get to feel this truth and this presence and this love. And when I'm in prayer, I feel that same presence still. When I'm in service, when I'm in worship, I have yet to make it through a church service without tears. I'm not sad. I don't even know what I'm feeling. That's the thing is I've been through so much therapy. I've been through, I'm an actor too. I've been through that training, and both of those are, what am I feeling and why? And now I'm in church and tears are streaming down my face and I don't know why. I just feel Him and it just happens.
It's the presence of the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
And science isn't able to measure it. And atheists think it's emotionalism. Mm-hmm. You were an atheist.
Yeah.
What do you say about that? What do you say to the atheist that you were about that?
Right. I think even an atheist would say yeah, we don't know everything. We haven't even explored the depths of the Pacific Ocean. So just like,
and that's right over there. We can see
that's
that.
right
Yeah.
there. We have, our technology is still working on it, but it's like, if you want, I like, even yesterday was on Instagram and I came across, it was a comedian who said that like all she ever wants is to experience a ghost, because then she'll know there's something real outside, like there's something real outside of herself. And it's like, I know that was done in the structure of a joke, but that's truth. I think every atheist still wants to feel it. And they're just like, if you could just prove it to me, then I would know. And that's the tricky thing with faith, is that, yes, I got to experience him. And a lot of people don't. And so I can understand their stance on that. But also to say, like, no, we have our fortress and I know what's real, is like, really? Do you? I mean, even like, you could go into like the media. Is the media giving you 100% of the truth all the time? No, like I think that's where this search for truth I've been, I think, desperate for it. And I know I'm not alone on that. I've been desperate to feel that there is this thing with me that wants the best for me. And to know that is everything. And I know there are so many people who just are like, if you could just give me that. And then I would just be like, you know what? Pray for it. Like, let me know. I'll pray for you too. Like, I want you to have that, or your version of it, whatever you need to have. I want you to have that, because I wouldn't have even asked for this. I didn't want this. I didn't want Jesus to show up, but he did. I didn't ask for that. I didn't even know that was, ultimate truth. Oh, that's Jesus. I wouldn't have like mentally or cognitively ever said that, but it's like, it is there.
It sounds like before he showed up, you would have been in the camp that would have opposed that position until you experienced him.
Truly. Like, even when I was in New Age and was like, okay, there's a God and it's real. Not the Christian God, but there's a God and it's real. I still was like, no on Jesus. Well, this is actually something I do need to mention of New Age is getting more and more insidious in it, because now they're starting to acknowledge Jesus, not as the Son of God, not his resurrection, but they're saying things like Christ consciousness, and they're saying that that's something to aspire to. And I've even heard of them praying to Jesus as if it was just kind of like an angel in a way. And I've seen more, and because I came from New Age, like, I can identify it, but I can see how there was, again, like on Instagram, there was this like, oh, like, we're talking about Christianity, but they were talking about New Age and just phrasing it as, oh, this is actually what Jesus wants for you. And it was straight up New Age. And it's like, that's something that I do think people need to know, that when you hear like Christ consciousness, or if you hear someone say, oh yeah, I pray to God, it's like, that does not mean the Christian God. That does not mean the triune God and Jesus. But yeah, I was fully opposed to the concept of Jesus. But then, like, not just the concept of Jesus as more of like maybe like a prophet, but as the concept of, oh, he is the Son of God, and understanding the gospel in that, like, that's taken me a long time to understand. But Yeah, that is something of like where I came from. I was so opposed to him that even when New Age people would say Christ consciousness, I would be like, no, no thanks.
New Age deception. That's a clear deception, and you know, I think New Age people are hungry for something to be true spiritually. And I think they're searchers for sure. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that have come out of New Age because they had a demonic encounter, or were awakened, and then they're like, oh, yeah, there's not lots of options like I thought there was in spirituality. There's actually two teams, right? There's darkness and there's light, and so with that, I mean, coming out of New Age, you are in agreement. Okay, so if we're going to be just straight up about, there's Team Jesus and God, right? And Holy Spirit, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. And then there's the enemy of God. And that's it. Yes. Everything that is not Father, Son, and Holy Spirit falls into the camp of the enemy of God. Okay? I'm not making that up on my own. That's a pretty common understanding in the world, and people who have come out of New Age, like, yep, we were sold a bill of goods on that, and it was alternative stuff and lots of options. Like, no, it's not. It's all the enemy of God. So as you are in New Age and are essentially agreeing with this and partnering with this, I mean, you're having stuff's moving around in your apartment, and you're getting words for people. Right? It's not coming from your relationship with God, but something else, whatever that is. Are you doing work? Have you done work to like sever that and renounce that? I mean, because if you partner with that, the door is open, and they reside in that soul mind area that we talked about, and there's a removal process, there's an eviction that needs to take place. Have you done any of that kind of stuff?
Yes. Yeah, I'm still in process of it because I agreed with a lot of things. And that has, so I did the prayer freedom. I got Beatty and Carmichael's.
Did you watch it here?
I did. And then I was like, okay, what can I lose? Let's do it. It was right after my baptism, and I was thinking, when I was getting baptized, I was like, feel like there's some forgiveness components I need to work on. And the prayer freedom is like extensive. It's go through all of your stuff. And there is that emphasis on the forgiveness component. And I like wrote down all these people's names and just was like, okay, yep. Like anyone I had like a little heart twinge of like, not that person. And so I started doing the prayer of freedom, and it's kind of like intensive couple of days, and then it's like a month. And then he wants you to continue. I didn't continue past the month, but I did do the that prayer, and there's that forgiveness component. And every single time I did the prayer, it's like the unforgiveness I had for everyone on that list, it just started diminishing, except for two people. And I was like, Lord, like, why can't I forgive these two? And within 1 week of starting the prayer of freedom, I got a message from one of them saying, hey, I've been wanting to apologize for a long time. And I was like, wow, okay. And then 3 weeks later, my church did a week of prayer and fasting. So I guess they do that at the beginning of every year. And it was great. It was like, we were worshiping like every night, and it was truly like, I'm like, I want to do it again. And I was hungry, but during that week, we were given a prayer partner. We were like just assigned it in our community group. And my prayer partner had said, oh, I think I have this like unforgiveness for this one person. I think I'm going to reach out to her. And I was like, whoa, that's
unbelievable.
You're a good person.
Yeah.
And it just like inspired me to be like, okay, if I were going to reach out to this other person, like what message would I send? And so I just like wrote out a message and I was like, Lord, if you give me a bucket of courage, like I'm going to need a swimming pool of courage to send this message. And so I was fasting from food and all media. I was like, I'm no Netflix, no YouTube, no Instagram, just no news websites, nothing. And that Thursday I wrote this thing and I was like, I don't know if I'll ever send this. I logged back into Instagram that Saturday morning and there is a message from that second person saying, I want to apologize to you. We hadn't talked in 5 years. And I had been praying to forgive her. And 2 days later, and I got this message from her and I prayed about it and I kept just hearing phone call and I was like, no.
No. You've given all this technology.
No. I was like, no, please, can we just type it? Fine. And I mean, I went 2 days later, I was on the phone with her. I thought it was going to be, okay, Lord, fine, 15 minutes. It'll be fine. 2 hours. I talked to this person who like profoundly hurt me for 2 hours. I'd been in therapy for as long as like those 5 years of like, I was like, there still is this thing I have around this person. There still is this like, every time I would think about her, it would just be like dagger to the heart, nausea, and instead, and then of course, in this phone call, he tells me, tell her that she's mine. And he gives me a word of knowledge for her. And he tells me that she doesn't forgive herself. And he wants me to tell her that he sees her. And that she is his. And that he really wants her to forgive herself. And so suddenly I'm on this phone call with this person who like really, really hurt me. And now I'm like telling her, like God is like, tell her. And he prompted me 3 times. I didn't do it the first time.
Yeah, what did that look like?
It was just like, it's like I'll get that like download message type of thing. And he was like, she doesn't forgive herself. And that's destroying her, basically, is what I was told. And so now this phone call wasn't just, I forgive you. It's, I forgive you and you forgive you. And like, this is from Jesus. This is from my God. And she's religious from a different religion. And he just was like, you need to tell her this. And I told her, and immediately she started crying. And she said, like, you're such a good person that you would do this. I'm so sorry I treated you that way. And like egoically, doesn't everyone want to hear like the person who really hurt them to just be like, I shouldn't have treated you that way. You didn't deserve it. Of course. But all I thought in that moment was like, if it were up to me, we wouldn't have even had the phone call. Like, this is Jesus. This is his work. Because I was like, phone call? No, please no. I don't want to do that. And then suddenly it was phone call, forgive her, help her forgive herself. And like, that's what this is. And now when I think about her, I don't want her in my life, but I think about her and I just think like, the Lord is so good. I don't feel a dagger to the heart anymore. I just feel like this is love.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful. And I think a lot of us have people in our lives that we have some pretty deep unforgiveness for. And I think forgiveness is one of the most critical things for us to do in our lives. Beatty's book does a great job of guiding you into a place where you're asking the Holy Spirit to reveal where there is unforgiveness and where there is buried sin and things like that. That's what I enjoy. We'll link that. Don't leave to go find that. We'll link that in the episode description again, and probably links to his episode. It was really a powerful one. But no, I mean, the original question that started that piece of the conversation was, going through deliverance. So that's a piece of it, right? And that was a part of the process with Beatty's book. And sometimes I do self-deliverance, and I'm in a place now where I'm more tuned in to if something is out of sorts, if I've held on to unforgiveness too long or something like that, that I know that I've potentially opened a door. And if there's behavior within me that seems to be a little bit irrational or something like that, or compulsive, that might have a potential demonic root, then I just uproot it and like a weed and cast it out, scripturally in Jesus' name. But I've also sat down with a deliverance minister who walked me through areas of life, kind of like Beatty's book does, and guided me through some of that stuff. And I know that a lot of our prayer partners do that, and people coming out of New Age usually have a little bit more than other people because they've partnered with the enemy of God. And have you ever considered doing that? Do you have resources in your area for that?
I ended up I submitted to like a deliverance ministry over the summer, and they are so backlogged. They got back to me in January, and I've had 2 in-person sessions, and that made me be like, the enemy is real. Yeah. I had 3 people laying hands and praying over me and speaking prayer, and I was twitching and I was shaking, and there were like sounds that I made that I can't recreate.
You had some manifestations.
Yes.
Okay.
And that was like, oh, okay, this is real. So I've had 2 in-person sessions, and then I submitted for Deliverance. I forgot what her name is. I think she was on here, Kathleen Young, perhaps. So I have an online appointment in I think in May there. So I'm just like, I can tell I'm still needing.
She's one of our prayer partners, and she had a great episode. We'll mention that one as well, of a pretty profound healing. But she and her church have really stepped into ministry and around healing and deliverance. It's Free People Church, and if you're on our website, it's strongerfaith.org/prayer, and they're prayer partners. We've got probably 15, 18 prayer partners that do deliverance through Zoom calls and other things like that are really powerful. I'm glad you're doing that, and I'm glad you're doing it with a friend too. So
I could tell that was, I gave permissions, and I have done the self-deliverance stuff, and it was like, oh, I need someone else to help with this. That's where I had these weird injuries, and some of them have continued, and I'm still resolving some of those. But I really am like, because I could just tell that they weren't, I don't know how else to describe it, but like they weren't of God.
Yeah.
And every single one of them, I would go to a doctor and they'd be like, what you said on how this injury happened doesn't make any sense in what I'm seeing. And that's been, like a year of dealing with different weird things. So
that's great. And hey, you got more freedom in store for you. And, but at the same time, you seem so in love with Jesus. You experienced him. It's like people say, once you experience him, then it's hard to put those things into words. And your transformation seems to be pretty marked. What does day-to-day life with God look like for you now?
Yeah. I always like to start the day with prayer, whether that's 5 minutes or like, especially when we were doing that week of prayer and fasting, that was like an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I'll just like get into prayer and then suddenly I'll like see someone's face and it's like, okay, need to pray for that person. And then sometimes I'll pray for them about this, and then I will. And it's just like, especially during that week of fasting, it was like, okay, pray for this person. Okay, about this, about this, about this. And it was just like hours of doing that. And then, I mean, this is where like even saying like a blessing over food, I still feel the presence. Like it's still, sometimes I'm like crying on a burger. Like, I was just like, tears are just happening. I'm not sad. And that's just been really, great to just feel. And then, I have Sunday service, Thursday Bible study, and then Monday, I'm going through this, there's a book called Purple Book, and it's basically like a biblical foundations workbook where it's like, they'll take like, something like salvation, and then it's like, okay, now go through, like they kind of tell you where to look, but like go through the Bible and see what it says here and what it says here and what it says here. And it's like, oh yeah, it agrees. And then it adds to it. And it's like this, it's been so helpful for me.
That's great.
Especially because like I came to this knowing, I started in Genesis. So I'm like,
it makes sense, right? It's page 1.
Right. It's page 1. So just, so that's been really great. And it's just, this community is like constant text over like, hey, let's go see a movie. Hey, let's like, they've invited me in so intensely and so beautifully. And I genuinely feel like I go through the world and I have a different relationship with humanity. Like truly, it's not this who's gonna hurt me thing. It's this, how can I love you thing.
Oh, that's so good. That's the transformation. That is so powerful. I can just feel that as you say that. I know you came here to share what happened, where you were, where you came from, because people are going to identify totally with atheists and hurt by Christians, anti-Christianity, the New Age world that you identified in as well, that you participated in. You didn't identify. I'm using that language. That you participated in, and even this transition into what Jesus told you was truth for you in being in the LGBTQ community for 15 years, and that he's walking you into a different truth. The truth, actually, not a different truth, the truth. And so you it's extraordinary. Every one of those elements by themselves are just super, super powerful. And I know that you came here to share about experiencing the love and presence of Christ. Is there a message that you feel like God is giving you, given all of this having a platform, you stepping out in obedience. You're not doing this to gain popularity, that's for sure.
No.
Right. It's purely out of obedience. And in that obedience, as he said, hey, I think this is what you need to deliver. What would you say to people?
Yeah. I mean, I just keep... You don't have to be lost. Like, love is already here. And you just have to call out to him. But he already knows you. He just wants you to acknowledge him.
Did I miss anything? Is there something that you feel like you would need to touch on, or that you need to bring up that I just didn't ask you about?
Oh, I guess just in how I got here. Just the Lord has put it on my heart to submit my testimony so many times. And I have begged him for a year. In January, I was like, Lord, give me a year. And during that week of prayer and fasting, it was constant. Every time I would like leave space for the Holy Spirit, like I'm in prayer, leave space, it'd be like, submit your testimony. And I mean, I'm still in this place where like, I don't have like a steady job. And I'm like, Lord, give me a job and I'll submit my testimony. Like trying to be like, I've done some freelance stuff, but it's like, I'm like, I just want a paycheck. And he was like, how about you submit your testimony? And I was like, I don't want, like, you don't understand how much I don't want to do that. I'm not ready. Give me a year. And it just, every time I was in prayer, he was like, submit it, do it. And then finally I was like, actually the end of January, my pastor did this sermon and he was talking about like mission trips at the beginning, but it morphed into like, how are you serving in the way only you can serve? And immediately I got like kind of like bold-faced message of like, submit a video. And I was like, fine. If you will stop pestering me over this, I will submit a video. And it's like, I know your team prays about it. And I know, I'm like, they wouldn't call me if that's not a thing that we're both on board with. And I was like, fine, I'll just record it. And I recorded it. And the audio cut out after like, I think it was like 6 or 8 minutes. And so then I was grumpy and had to re-record it. And then I was like, okay. And then uploading it wasn't met. It like wouldn't upload. And then finally it did. And I was like, fine. And actually I uploaded it right before I went to my first Deliverance session. So I think that was funny.
How about that?
Yeah. But then, 5 days later, I was driving my car and I fully thought like it was going to be like a month or so before I heard back from you guys. But I was driving my car, listening to worship music. And often like when I get messages or downloads or whatever you want to describe, it's often if I'm in prayer, worship, or service. Those are like the loudest ones at least. And I was in worship and I was like at this one intersection going to go to the gas station over there. And I just got just this intense like message. And I thought like if you guys responded that I should come in May because my brother's getting married in May. And so it would make sense because I'll be in Atlanta. I can just pop over Alabama, pop back to Atlanta. Not a big, just take a little detour for a day. So I was like, okay, Lord, I submitted my thing. If they want me on, we'll go in May. And so I was at the stoplight and I just heard, go to Alabama before May. And I was like, no. Again, one of those things, like the same thing with the phone call, the same thing with community, the same thing with baptism and testimony. No,
I'm not ready.
I'm not ready. And that's like, he just like keeps bringing me into those situations. And immediately I'm arguing, maybe one day I won't be so stubborn, but we're still in that place. And I was like, that makes no sense financially, logistically. No, I asked for a year, and then I said, fine, May. And now you said, no, you can't even wait till May. You can't wait till May. And then my second thought was just, they haven't even responded yet. Like, you don't know. Of course he knows. And then, later that night, so I did like look, normally when I get a message like that, I'll like look at the time and just be like, okay, I hear you, whatever, put this to the side. And then later that night, I check my email, and I have an email from Marianne of your team that was sent at 4:32 p.m., which was 2 minutes after I got this message. And it was like, okay. Like, that's what whenever I get a message, I ask for confirmation. And it was like, So the 2 minutes before she pressed send, you're going to Alabama before May. And it was like, I hadn't even talked to you yet. Like, it was like, right. And then I was like, but Lord, we need to have a phone call to see if, and it was like, I knew going into that phone call, he was like, you're going to Alabama before May.
I did too. We just had not let each other know that at that point yet. That's incredible. Yeah. Our God's just way bigger than we think he is. And he showed up for you, and he's made a way for you to be here. I love everything about this conversation. I love the supernatural nature of it. I love the challenges. I love the controversy. I'm probably going to get some flack. I can only be who I am, right? And I'm just in search of truth, but I can't get past him showing up and you experiencing a level of truth and love that you couldn't put into words. I can't, I'm stuck there a little bit. Yeah. And I'll be honest, as you were describing a lot of that stuff, I felt it's just, and I don't get this stuff a lot, right? But I like this like coolness in my core, like, but on the inside, it's almost like, I don't know how to describe it, but a physiological coolness pressed on me in my abdomen and core as you are describing the presence of Jesus. I don't think I was the only one. I really don't. I am. This was an incredible conversation for an atheist in New Age to ask for God to help, and he shows up, and it's Jesus. You didn't create that. You wouldn't have created that.
I wouldn't.
And for the transformation to begin, that is rebaking DNA level things about you, it's the presence of God. It's the truth of God's existence. And that is what we're after in these conversations. That's why we have everyday people who are experiencing God. These aren't opinions and theories. You're like, hey man, I'm just telling you what happened. And I was this, and now I'm this, and it was him that did it. It's incredible. Lucy Meadows, I am so happy to know you. I'm so thankful that he brought you here the way he did. Mm-hmm. And we love you. Our team, myself, we are for you. We know how this is the beginning of things. I think your story is going to resonate with so many people. I think it's going to challenge some people, but I think if you're open, you'll hear it. But we're just so thankful for you. This has just been a wonderful conversation. I have just loved every second of it, and I just appreciate you so much, and I love you for being obedient to God, and I love what He's going to do in response to your obedience and what you've done here. But just thank you for coming. I just am thankful to know you. Thank you, Lucy Meadows.
Well, thank you.
I love this conversation with Lucy. I've never had Jesus show up in the room with me, but I love that He did it for her and that He brought absolute truth and overwhelming love with Him. Lucy's not an atheist anymore because she experienced God and His love. And she no longer identifies as lesbian because God removed the deception and revealed the truth. Remarkable. The world feeds us deception constantly, and it's easy to fall prey to it. It happens to all of us. We need to ask God to show us the truth and step into His guidance. And I know that you know somebody that you feel has been swept away in the world's deception. I want to encourage you to share Lucy's story with them. It may very well be what God uses to reveal the truth and hope to them. Thank you for joining us today on A Stronger Faith. Lucy has an extraordinary story of experiencing God, and you may very well have one of your own. If you do, and you feel like God may be nudging you to share it so that others can come to know Him through it, I want to encourage you to reach out to us at astrongerfaith.org/contact. Follow the instructions for guest recommendations there, and you may very well be an upcoming guest with us. If you do, I promise you it will be an amazing experience as you step into obedience to what God's calling you to do. And if you feel like God's prompting you to support this ministry financially, you can find easy-to-navigate giving options at astrongerfaith.org/give. It is through the experiences of our guests and the generosity of our audience that God is fueling a powerful awakening across the world, and we would love to have you join us. Until next time, we pray that you experience the more that God has for you, and that He builds a stronger faith in you and in those you love.